Welcome back to the Pick Swap podcast. It is Friday, February 11th at 3 p.m. So, a little bit over 24 hours since the Sixers acquired James Harden, and Sean is smoking his victory cigar. How did you wake up feeling today of a fan of the team that has James Harden on their squad?
James, it is a great day in Philadelphia basketball. A very great day in Philadelphia basketball. I could not be happier that Daryl Morey found a way to get it done through all the craziness, all the insane Ben Simmons saga that has gone down and this year has been a part of. In the end, it is over. The Sixers got their guy. Daryl Morey got his guy, and James Harden and Joel Embiid are ready to lead this team to a championship.
I really can't believe it. And, it's kind of been settling in over the last 24 hours. And, I've gotten to this point today where I looked down at my phone and everything I see is either James Harden related or Ben Simmons related. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of getting used to it, I guess, but it still feels weird. James Harden is apparently going to wear number one in Philadelphia, obviously because Wilt Chamberlain's number 13 is retired. But he comes in. He's not going to play this weekend, so today and tomorrow he probably will not be in the lineup. But Tuesday night seems to be the night that he will be joining the Sixers and potentially playing his first home game against the Boston Celtics. So just walk me through yesterday. Walk me through when you kind of started believing it was going to happen, and then when the trade went through and how you were receptive of that news.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I probably went to bed thinking not as likely. That started to feel a little more depressed on it. It felt like Brian Windhorst was the only real insider, if you want to say that, was still on board with the Harden to Philly happening for prior to the deadline and not in the off season as an option. And then when I woke up in the morning, there started to be some buzz again. We started to hear Woj reporting that he believes some serious talks were going to happen. The smoke continued to pick up, and then all of a sudden at I believe it was 1:17 was the time it was originally tweeted out, and from there, here we are, James Harden to Philadelphia. I mean, this has been something we've chased for quite some time. I think it's very cool that he wanted to be here, that he wants to come to Philly. I think that's very notable, especially given Harden and the situation with everything. And I mean, he's perfect. He fits exactly what the Sixers are looking for. This is the best perimeter player that we've had since Iverson, and I'm just straight up thrilled.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're forgetting about Tony Roten to put him in that conversation of the best perimeter player. But like seriously, this is real life. James Harden, former MVP, scoring champion, 7-time All NBA, is a Philadelphia 76er. Not only that, he is everything the Sixers have been asking for in a player from the beginning of all this. You think about, people talk about how the Sixers haven't had a player that could dribble, pass, and shoot all at the same time, and like being able to do all three. Not only can he do all those three, but he's proficient. He's one of the best in the league at all three. And I think that's an underrated part of this acquisition is how he facilitates. He's averaging 10.2 assists on the season right now. He's
Mhm.
he's sleepwalking to 20 plus points a game right now. I was looking back at his stats throughout the season. You look at his stretch right after Christmas and into the new year, he was dropping 30-point triple doubles by himself without KD or Kyrie. So just imagine with, Joel, and let's not forget about Tobias and the way that his role is going to evolve with
Yeah.
James Harden and Tyrese Maxey. And I don't know, we're going to talk about the starting five in a couple minutes, but dude, what does this team look like now with James Harden running the point, creating offense for himself and everyone else? I literally can't even fathom what it's going to be like. I'm ecstatic.
Yeah, I think one of the most unique parts about this whole season is we've looked at this entire roster as it's clearly unfinished, and there's clearly we don't know exactly what we have, what we're looking for. Now that everybody's here, that James Harden is a part of this team, we're elevated into the legitimate contender category, and just having that top level player. Forget the top 30, top 25. James Harden is an obvious top 15 player in the NBA, like no doubt about it. Even top 10, I would consider pretty confidently in that list. And to have that level of star power, that's what it takes to win in the NBA. And it's hard to do that without having uh, two of those players, at least one of those, and then a couple very good players. But to have Embiid and Harden paired is an elite duo. Elite duo. I would argue probably the best in the NBA right now. I can't think of a group that's better. Like I'm so ecstatic with that, and that's the hardest thing to do. When you can get the top level talent, you can find the role players, you can fill in the gaps, you can find guys to do the little things. But the most difficult task is achieving that top level star tier talent. And Daryl Morey found a way to do it. So I think he deserves his credit. He played this situation exactly right. He played the cards 100% how they were meant to be handled, handled everything in the swing, and the job got done. This Sixers team is finally fully constructed.
Yeah. Like, we were talking about this in October saying, oh, maybe it's CJ McCollum, maybe it's Buddy Hield. It turned into potentially Jeremy Grant. It turned into the lowest of the low points, people saying we should sell him off for nothing, picks,
Yeah, Buddy Hield.
draft compensation. They got James Harden. So let's talk about Daryl Morey. And let's talk, and I know we're both gonna have a lot to say about this, but people saying that the Sixers lost this trade, I think, have lost a grip on reality.
Absurd.
Because you really like Seth, and we learned to like Drummond. We did.
Yeah.
And they're two very good players and two really good at their role. Two guys that helped the Sixers win a lot of games this year, undoubtedly. We can't. It's hard to say bad things about either of those two guys. They both played their roles as professionals, and they were very, very good. Ben Simmons was the main trade piece here, right? He
Yeah.
was not going to play for the Sixers ever again. And you know me more than anyone else to say that's hard for me to admit. It was hard for me to really swallow that pill and realize the situation. But look at this with open eyes. The Sixers got James fucking Harden at the trade deadline in exchange for Ben Simmons and a backup center on a veteran minimum and a good shooter.
Mm-hmm.
That is what they got in exchange for that James Harden.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it seems like a lot. Ben Simmons' potential and the way that we see him going to Brooklyn, it's a lot. It seems like a lot. And they might be good. They're going to be good. They have one of the best scorers in NBA history on their team. And then they have Kyrie Irving. And then they have Ben Simmons, who knows what he's going to be able to do. But this was absolutely the right deal at the right cost. They didn't give up. They didn't even give up Matisse Thybulle.
Yeah.
They didn't even give up Matisse Thybulle. They didn't give up Maxey. They kept all of their main pieces. They were going to let Drummond walk in 4 months. He was going to be on a different team by July.
Yeah.
Seth Curry has another year on his deal, but he probably would have been elsewhere too. Let's be real. This is absolutely the best deal possible at the best cost. The Sixers win this trade 10 out of 10 times. I don't really care what anyone else has to say, and I can't believe there's people refuting that.
Yeah, I think it's crazy people saying the Sixers are overpaying. Like, the Sixers didn't touch any part of their long-term plans. When we think about, like you said, Drummond was on a 1-year deal. He was here to serve his job, rebuild his value, and cash out at the end of the year. The Sixers weren't going to re-sign him. That's fine. Obviously, we're going to miss him for the rest of the season for playoffs. He was very good. I loved Drummond a lot more than I expected to. A guy that I really was not about when he got here, and I'm sad to see him go. So appreciate that, but having backup center issues is way less concerning than having like second tier star issues. And Seth Curry, it's concerning how important Seth Curry was to this offense or to the Sixers team, I would say. And defensively, I mean, I've been pretty on record with this guy can't pretty much defend a cone, and he makes James Harden look like Matisse Thybulle out there in some defensive aspects. So Curry, I as much as he was absolutely great here, a steal of a trade to get him from Morey in that originally, and more than outplayed any expectations that he had. But there were no long-term scenarios where a Maxey and Curry backcourt could have succeeded, especially in the playoffs, especially deep in the playoffs. And even as like a bench asset, which of course I would love to have kept Curry if it was possible, because he is a great shooter, does a lot of great things, and a guy that I think everybody genuinely liked, which is cool. But he has plenty of holes in his game, and I think that there's certainly going to be I think now his expectations and values are a little above what he's going to be able to provide in Brooklyn, and which I think it was the opposite case coming to Philly. So this is kind of one of those buy low, sell high that Morey did. And I mean, 2 first-round picks doesn't matter to me. Perfectly fine with me. And then like you said with Ben Simmons, it cannot be acted like him returning and playing the Sixers was on the table. Like, that simply was not an option. And for people to kind of weigh that like it was, and the ESPN talking heads to go from get Embiid help, they're wasting his prime, they have to get Simmons out of there, to now like, well, look at how good Simmons can be with this. It's like, what, you got to pick a side, man, and you're doing a really bad job of this. And Stephen A. Smith's the number one that I'm coming to mind right now, but very frustrating, the national reaction in my mind. I can't imagine. But and real quick, shout out Scotty Drown, friend of the pod. Like he put it, Seth Curry, role player, Andre Drummond, role player, James Harden, superstar, and that should pretty much be the end of the discussion.
I don't know how even it gets to that point. Like,
Yeah,
if you're looking at that trade and you just put X's where the names are, and you say it's not Matisse Thybulle and it's not Tyrese Maxey,
yeah,
and obviously it's not Joel Embiid, you make that deal. Like, you don't think twice, whether it was Furkan, whether it was Danny Green, whether it was Shake, whether it was George Niang, whether it was Paul Reed, whether it was Isaiah Joe. Those two names didn't matter. It doesn't matter. I love Seth. He was a great player. James Harden takes, I'm sorry, 7.3 three attempts per game for his career. He shoots over 36%. We're going to be fine. He creates way more offense than Seth Curry does. And you love Seth Curry, obviously, but James Harden does a better job at essentially everything except for probably catch and shoot. But if he's catching and shooting off of double teams from Joel Embiid, he might be shooting 40% if he's shooting wide open every game. Like, I don't know. I'm very surprised that there's people that would not have done that deal,
yeah.
because it really, I don't see the downside of it. Like, you don't lose anything. Like, people are talking about the monetary value and, oh, like James Harden's going to want another deal. It was actually misreported that he opted in because he did
Which is
it.
relevant. Like, I would have much preferred him to have opted in for sure, but
They're gonna say, I bet he signs an extension.
yeah, I think he's gonna want the 5 years right away, which you still have to do it. You absolutely
You
do
just
it.
do
And
it.
I also am. There's legitimate concerns when we talk about the Harden, like, forcing out of back-to-back teams, and that I think there's a lot of reason for confidence that he's going to be happy in Philly. When we talk about all the extenuating circumstances, as far as Morey, the relationship with the GM, had a great relationship in Houston. Came here with that. He apparently has a ton of respect for Embiid. There was a story about Harden that kind of chased Embiid down in the tunnel. This was last year after Embiid kind of just played his heart out in a game against them, and Harden just chased him out and gave him like a dap up and talk and that kind of thing. It just has like a lot of respect. Michael Rubin, apparently Harden just hangs at his house like pretty much multiple days a week, and that they're like that tight like that, which is
Yeah.
crazy. And I just Tad Brown, Sixers president, that he's
Meek
Harden's
Mill.
called like a father figure. There's a lot of just like this feels like a good environment for him, and a locked in James Harden is a lot different from a one that doesn't care. And he's one of the clearer people to tell when he is and when he isn't. So, but I am confident that him coming here, that he will come with the right mentality. I think him and Joel are going to be great together, and I could not be happier.
Yeah, and like, we've talked about the championship window stuff so often. We talked about winning now. We talked about not wanting young players and draft picks because you wanted to win now. If that means you have a 2-year James Harden tax where you're paying him a ton of money, and he's kind of old and not that good anymore, you deal with that. If it gives you 3 or 4 years of genuine contention,
Yeah.
like, I really don't see how that doesn't make sense to people. Look at Chris Paul. I know they're different players, but they're not that different.
No, not really.
They're
And
not that different.
I mean, when you think about if you could pick any player in the NBA to complement Embiid well enough or be the co-star to Embiid, I really think James Harden might be like number one on that list, which is
He's top 3.
yeah, like that's and we got him, and he's now a
Yeah, he's
Sixer.
on our team. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like, again, I really don't. Even if they included Thibault, I think I would have gotten over it.
Yeah, I
Like,
was ready to pull the trigger on a Thibault deal, and to be able to keep him, that's a serious asset for the Sixers, because
yeah,
now his like concerns will be minimized with Harden there, who can shoot, who can set him up, do all these things, and as far as like passing ability and everything, Harden is an upgrade over Simmons in terms of his creation for others, his
yeah.
passing and IQ as a passer. And there's going to be a lot of guys who benefit from that. Danny Green's one that jumps out to me, who he's been like hurting in a major way this year from not having a guy to just find him in catch and shoot situations, find him in the corner. Matisse, for how often he cuts and how great he is at cutting. To have Harden, who can now just put it in his pocket on a regular basis, things like that. And for
Wow.
Embiid, yeah, lob threat for Embiid. How often he gets positioned down low that there just are times where nobody can get him the ball. That changes as well. And when we talk about the backup center situation, Charles Bassey is a perfect James Harden backup center. Like, it's very similar to what he ran with Clint Capella in Houston for plenty of time, where all he needs to be successful, like, he could literally turn Charles Bassey into a 10 plus point per game scorer, and I wouldn't be surprised at all by it. Just through pick and roll, lob threat, athleticism, all things that just Bassey has the body and functionality of just a what you need in an NBA center, and that's all Harden really needs to capitalize with. This guy is one of the highest IQ players in the NBA, which there's so much made out of his rep of, like the strip club, the heavy fat dude that shows up in balls, but it's like he is smart on a basketball court. He's incredibly smart, like one of the smartest players that I've ever seen, and it's so fascinating to watch him just pick apart a defense, make his reads, and I can't wait to watch that in a Sixers uniform.
Dude, I can't wait. There's so many things. I'm really happy that you mentioned the IQ thing because, like, it's so underrated. Like, let's actually think about the fact that he averages over 10 assists per game.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Over 10 a game. Like, Tyrese Maxey has been fantastic, and he averages 4. Like, that is at least, at the very minimum, 12 more points per game created just on assists right there, and you're changing your point guard. And like, Maxey is going to be awesome. I think Maxey is going to be great. He's going to have smaller portions. I think he's probably going to get more time running the offense with the second unit. I think he's going to have more time with that because you don't need him for a lot of the other things. You know what I'm excited for?
What?
Really? Fourth quarter offense.
Yeah.
James Harden running this show. James
Yeah.
Harden bringing the ball up. James Harden not being able to get fouled and ruin everything. James Harden breaking down defenders and making passes. And guys like Niang, like you said, and Furkan and Isaiah Joe, Danny Green, all these guys are going to be open on the perimeter. Who's going to hit them? Either Embiid or James Harden. And then you look at, let's talk about Tobias Harris because he's back to now the third option,
Yeah.
which
A
is
lot of
best for
pressure.
everybody. No pressure for him. He's going to be good, and he's going to be in his spots, and he's going to turn into a damn good 40+% three-point shooter from the corner, and I would put money on that. Like, he's going to turn into a guy that I think is much more productive, much like back to the efficient Tobias, and he's not asked to do that much. I
Mhm.
think there's going to be like this just changes everything. Like, it actually changes everything, and all the things that we've talked about, wanting a trade so that they could just end it and start from where they are and just not have the headache anymore. Not only do they not have the headache, they have probably the best possible replacement for the headache. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really know how to express how excited I am for this offense. The half court offense, which has always just been dump it down to Embiid and figure it out. Late game offense when James Harden can take the pressure off of Embiid or a James Harden and Joel Embiid pick and roll.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. This is going to be ridiculous.
Yeah. No, it is absolutely awesome. I woke up, the grass was a little greener today, the sun was a
Yeah.
little brighter. Everything this made everything right in my world. And
Yeah.
uh I haven't felt like that in about a Sixers move pretty much ever. I feel like this
Ever.
is one of the I guess like just purely happiest with how it went down that I have been, especially just considering the circumstance and also just the fact that all the Ben Simmons stuff is finally over. Like, even though the Sixers have done a very good job of keeping it like separated, not letting it be a distraction, anything, there still was just the lingering like, this guy sucks. He's still here. This guy's still like dropping his articles, making his little comments, leaving his little leaks, and just I'm very happy for it all to be over, for there no longer to have to be the whole Ben Simmons narrative, and that we can just move on.
It's a blessing. It's
Mhm.
60 degrees out today. I
Mhm.
walked without a coat. I went to campus today and I was like, "Oh my god, the sun, I can feel warmth from the sun today." There's a change in the patterns today. I feel good, like you said. We want to talk a little bit before we go too far past here. We do want to talk about our new sponsor, BetUS.
Mhm.
If you use our code PickSwap, BetUS. I don't even know what to tell them, Sean. What do we want to even tell them?
Yeah.
Go
So
sign up. Use BetUS. Sign up with the code PickSwap.
yeah, PickSwap's partnering with BetUS, which is a premier betting site. that we're excited about. You log on, do all your betting needs. We got the Super Bowl coming up here. Yeah, I mean, it's got all you need for what you want to do when you bet, and we're thrilled
We're
about
gonna
it.
be we're gonna be using it. We're gonna be putting all our pick swap parlays. That's why we've been a little bit quiet with the parlays recently. We've been quietly doing some business. Sean's been working under the table. Real G's moving silence like lasagna. And today we premiere our new sponsorship with BetUS. So check us out. Use our code PickSwap on BetUS when you log in, new users.
Mhm.
And just stay tuned on the Twitter as well,
Yeah,
because we'll be doing some more parlay stuff, some more Sixers betting stuff on there now that we're confirmed and a prime match with BetUS. So we're
yep.
pretty
It's
excited.
betus.com.pa, and then we will have that. We have that link below in our description and the promo code down there as well. So feel free to reach out any questions there and get going. And we're ready to win some money with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Winning a little
absolutely.
bit of money. One of my roommates won like $600 the other night.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
It was
I've
pretty crazy.
I took the Embiid MVP line at plus 4,000 right after the
Wow.
COVID and everything. So the not to disclose my funds, but it was 25 to win over 1,000. And so if Embiid takes it home, I'll be a very happy guy on that one.
Yeah, it's oh, there's a new article. Inside the tense negotiations that led to the Simmons and Harden trade. I would love to
Mm,
read a little bit more about that. But anyway, um I'm terrible at betting. I'm awful at betting. I did take Embiid. But when he was like plus 550, which is still good because now
so
he's
good.
like plus 280
Hmm.
or something, which is ridiculous. But I thought about it earlier. I did take Tyrese most improved player of the year, which probably not going to happen, unfortunately.
Hmm.
Um, but I did take him at plus 4,300. So if he wins
Okay.
that, I'm making a lot of money, which would be nice. But regardless, you can check all of that stuff out at BetUS. It's going to be a fun little connection that we do there. But let's move on here and let's talk about the starting five because realistically, we know four of the five. It's going to be Harden, Embiid, Tobias, and then Maxey. But there's a little bit up for discussion right now, and I'm sure it's something they might work through, try a couple of times, see what happens. But between Danny Green and Matisse Thybulle at the starting small forward spot, what do you think they should do? Because I have in my mind what I think, but I'm curious to know what you think about that.
Obviously, some of it's going to be matchup based, but in general, I'm going to say Danny Green just because I'm excited. I think there's going to be a rejuvenation in Danny Green with just a guy that is a gifted passer and a guy that can run an offense being thrown in there with him. I think he's going to benefit from that more than anyone. I also wouldn't be shocked if they slide Maxey to a 6-man role and start Matisse and Danny Green. And as far as Maxey in the long term, I'm so thrilled for. I can't think of a better guy for him to learn behind than Harden because there are a ton of similarities in their game. Maxey's obviously way more with his pace built and more athletically built than Harden is. But even something like their step backs are similar. The way they create their shots is kind of similar. Their build up and to learn from a guy that's a 10-time All-Star, 3-time scoring champ, like this is a perfect guy for him to learn behind. So I wouldn't mind him being thrown in with the second unit and just being able to do his thing while Harden and Embiid kind of run the ones.
Yeah, I would be. So that's an interesting point, and I had this conversation yesterday afternoon because I don't know. I feel like I want Maxey out there. I
Mhm.
feel like I want him to start, and I actually thought the opposite. I thought Matisse
Mm,
in the starting lineup, and not that I'm against DG or both of them being starting and Maxey going to the 6 man because, like I said earlier, Maxey is a menace and would tear up second unit defenses on like unreal. It would be
yeah,
disgusting what he would be able
be
to do,
fun.
and that's enticing, especially when you talk about the way the offense has been stagnated at times without a real backup point guard, and them looking pretty bad in terms of pace and facilitation in that second unit. And he could just be um, just imagine all the starters come off the floor, and then Tyrese Maxey comes on, and that changes a lot. And the way the game is played, it changes a lot. But when you're looking at it, between if James Harden and Tyrese are starting, and you have Matisse, I think defensively you look a lot better. Also, another underrated part about the James Harden addition is that he has eight rebounds per game
Yeah,
from the point guard shooting guard spot. Really important, especially when we consider how bad the Sixers have been in rebounding. His ability to guard size, he can kind of he can kind of play down a little bit because he's a bigger body, and that allows Matisse to potentially play a little bit more on the perimeter, depending on who the matchup is. So I think defensively, it gives you a really unique um, switchability with Matisse, and I just like him on the floor um, with a guy that can facilitate for him. And I guess the same thing with DG. And I
Mhm.
like what you said. I think Danny Green's ability to his IQ and finding himself in spots where he's open and not having anyone to hit him this year has been frustrating at times. And you can
Yeah.
just see like the amount of times he's kind of open and could get hit and then doesn't. So, and especially on the fast break because he does that
Yeah.
really well. But
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, this is the best luxury to have, right? It's
For
it's
sure.
so
For
nice
sure.
to have all of this, and maybe even if they do like sliding Maxey to the sixth man, and having Danny Green for the shooting, and he's still a good defender. He's not very good anymore, but he's good. And Matisse being Matisse, now you have the shooting, the defense, the cutter, the dunker spot guy. There's a lot of different ways you can go with this. It makes it exciting though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The having Harden, who's a guy who obviously I think his primary role will be as a point guard because that's kind of the way his career has been moving in that trajectory. But having a guy who is more versatile in his skill set just allows the Sixers to be way more fluent in how they move things and how guys are, and that's huge for this roster because, like we've talked about, there's so many guys that are so like niche in what they do and have such specific skill sets and what they're good at and what they're not. So having Harden to be like a more versatile, consistent, can do a little bit of it all. That opens things up and makes the weaknesses of others not as glaring. And when thinking about Harden as a whole, obviously this was when he was younger and more in the prime of his career. But thinking back to his time in Houston, when they would play the small ball, like Robert Covington was the guy playing the five there, the guy that was their technical center, and Harden was able to help out enough on the boards that really it didn't hurt the Rockets a ton. And that was a huge part of their system, was allowing him to be like the point guard and ball dominant player on offense and still sinking down and being like a primary rebounder defensively, which I mean, who knows how much of that will come into it. And also a quick shout out, Paul Millsap isn't a nothing throw in either. Like he's obviously far past the prime of his career, but he's a guy that I think in the playoffs will play some rotational minutes and could come into play. And I mean, we'll see how much he has left in the tank, but that I think is a worth taking a flyer on from Morey's perspective as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think so too. Uh, will be interesting to see. They have one more roster spot,
Yeah.
so they can do some work in the buyout market. There's some interesting rumblings about JJ Redick. I don't know
Yes,
how
sir.
how real those are. I mean, for the nostalgia part, for how I mean, I would love that just for Joel, like,
Hmm. Joel
just because
liked
I
it
know.
too.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if that's something like, but that's also to go back a little bit. That is something that Daryl Morey would do. I
Hmm.
think if they
Yeah.
think they're set with the backup bigs, if they think Bastian Millsap can figure it out as the backup centers, I genuinely think that if JJ Redick was interested, that if Embiid wanted it and he said, bring JJ back in, I'd love to have JJ around. I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Um, for the vibe of the team, for these guys to play with JJ a little bit, for him to have the chance to go make one more run at a title. I think there's maybe some traction there. I don't know. Like, do you think that that's actually a possibility?
So I think Maury will look at it. Obviously, these next couple days with the buyout market, I hate talking about it so much because it's such guesswork. It depends on like what teams and players decide to do for who becomes available. So if there is like a big man or a wing that becomes available, that's obviously I think priority number one, and Maury will be all over that. If there's nobody of interest that comes available and it's like time to get creative, I really like that as a flyer. Like, I mean, it was last year he retired, right? So
Yeah,
under a year retired. He's 37 years old. And think back to his time here, which was I'm probably
3 years ago,
five, probably how long ago?
three,
Three?
three
Only
seasons
three.
ago.
Wow. It feels like so much longer than that. But
Feels like right? No, that I mean, yeah, 2018, 2019 was his last year.
okay. So not that long ago. And I mean, for what we would need him to do, like he's not going to be playing the minutes he did back then. He would be a rotational off the bench guy. And I think to this day, Embiid and Redick have had the best chemistry out of any kind of two-man duo with that we've seen. So I wouldn't mind throwing him in, and a guy that is like a pretty consummate professional in the way that he goes about his business, the way that he understands the NBA, the business of it, the rotations of it, everything that happens. So To me, it's not a bad flyer if nobody materializes in the buyout market.
Yeah, and he played with Doc for a long time, to not forget that either in LA.
Yeah,
So maybe there's some, I don't know, maybe there is something there. It's like one of those things that's kind of like a little feel good thing that they could do, and I think JJ would be good in being a liaison between the coaching staff and the
yeah,
players. I think he's that type of guy. So maybe he could. If you're looking at the buyout market again, like you said, it's kind of tough to tell. You really don't know what's going to happen. Um, I would like to go out of my way and say I want like literally zero part of Ennis Freedom.
oh
I
yeah,
hope that he
oh yeah.
doesn't get a job anywhere. Um, but like if Mike Muscala gets bought out, which there's been talks about that, like you
That
almost
I would be
have to,
interested in.
right? Like
Yeah,
you'd
yeah, for
almost
sure.
have to. Like it'd be dumb not to.
Gary
Um,
Harris is another one
Gary Harris, dude, if he gets bought out, you have to.
for sure.
Gary Harris would be great, especially as a buyout. Like, are you
Mhm.
serious? Definitely one of those guys. But again, if that stuff doesn't happen, or again, buyouts they become free agents, so they can go anywhere. It's not like the Sixers can be like, oh, like you got bought out, like you're coming here. But there's a lot of things that have to fall in place, and maybe if things don't go the way that they necessarily want them to, throughout the buyout market, maybe that would happen. And I
Yeah.
think we'd all be okay with it. I think the city loves JJ.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And he's got a nice little like smugness about him that actually comes off like appealing to me, which I don't know. I would
Yeah.
like it. And a guy that on all accounts, gets along very well with, which also matters. Like, keep Joel happy at all costs. And shout out to Joel for just being as patient as he has been, being as trusting in Morey as he has been. And he deserves this. He deserves this for
Yeah.
happening. He's been like, and this probably doesn't happen if it isn't for the level of play that he's been on, for just willing this team into firmly in the mix for the East. I think absolutely pushed Morey to, all right, I need to make this happen now, and he did everything possible. So this doesn't happen without Joel Embiid whatsoever, and I'm very happy he finally got his proper co-star.
Yeah. And a guy that wants to be here, a guy
Yeah,
that really went out of his way to be here, which is quite the
feels good.
opposite from the other guy that is not here anymore. So, I mean, the tweet when it happened, the the tweet that Embiid sent out right when that happened, dude. Yeah, like you said, he deserves it. That was incredible. Like perfectly timing. Like for a guy that is his English is his second or third language, it's
He gets it.
his timing, his comedic timing is perfect. He knows exactly how to do it. And it was great. It was so funny. And like you said, it's finally time for him to have a proper chance at the championship for both of them, really, for both of them to go chase a ring. And like again, this is the best teammate that Embiid will have ever had by like a good margin.
Yeah,
Behind him was only Jimmy Butler, and it's like this was letting Jimmy go. As much as I didn't like Jimmy, as much as I still don't, as much as I was, not a fan of his really at all, that hurt, and I think that hurt Embiid, and I think him knowing how good Jimmy Butler was hurt that he wasn't around anymore, and now they upgraded. So even though it took a couple like painful years, you still got there in a roundabout way, and you can't complain about this team now. And like again, this is a damn good team, like top to bottom. It is very, very good.
how do you feel as a known Ben Simmons guy? How do you feel about your boy going to Brooklyn?
My like, I'm not gonna lie to you, Sean. Last night I felt like physically sick. Like seeing all the things and just like knowing that he is going to play somewhere else. I don't know. It sucks. It sucks because and I was joking around with a couple of my friends saying earlier, like, I know he was bad for me, but I still loved him. It's the most toxic relationship I was ever in. He was my favorite player, man. He really was, and I wished so much for him. I wished so much for what he was going to be, and unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. I know I sound like an ex-boyfriend right now. Or an ex-girlfriend even. It's kind of sad. I don't want to hear myself in this recording, but I'm being honest. Like that sucks. I
Yeah,
think even you who wasn't a huge Ben fan all the time, like the potential and the idea of what he could have been was like pulled you in so much. It's like I want this guy to be great, and maybe we wanted it more than he did,
for
which
sure.
is could potentially be the case. And you know, Brooklyn, they're going to be good. Like let's not front either. They're going to be good. Ben is good. Um, the rest of I mean, they have Kevin Durant. Like, they're gonna be good. So we might see them. We probably won't see Ben, but we might see them.
I want to see them in the playoffs so
Could you
bad. Like
imagine? Could you
I
imagine if they play and Kyrie can't play home games and Ben can't play away games in a series?
But the words the
Yeah.
whispers coming out from Ben's side is that he will be playing in Philadelphia when they come here, and that he's especially in the playoffs will be willing to play, which that's going to be World War IV or whatever that
Yeah.
this is if that happens. Uh, this is by far the best rivalry in the NBA now. Like all of these guys hate each other now. When we think about like
Yeah.
KD hates Harden, Embiid hates Embiid. like I can't wait to see a series where Embiid and Harden are both going to be like, we cannot lose to these guys. Like we absolutely cannot, and that's going to be a blast. The time that Embiid and Simmons are on the court together, and Embiid is just going to be full out in his like Russell Westbrook mode of emotion and hatred toward him. I'm gonna be all the way in on. And I mean, Embiid is the king of the city right now as far as sports go, and I I will ride with him to the death. And I really believe that this Sixers team is a bigger threat than the Nets in the East right now.
Dude, like this is I was saying this like there's no writers in cinema that write better than this. There's no
Yeah,
writers in TV shows that do better than this. Like this is stuff that you cannot make up. James Harden essentially pisses Kevin Durant off to the point where he won't even pick him in the All-Star game. That was
that was hilarious.
hilarious.
Yeah,
That was so funny. Um, but like obviously they're not cool anymore. And Kyrie had stuff to say about it too. And obviously the stuff with Ben and Joel, you
Kyrie's a
know,
bum.
I don't even know what to say about him. I was just like not even gonna give him the time because I just don't think it's worth it. Like to even talk about him. It's hard to even say like him coming out and saying like it sucks that I can't play at home games. It's like no
Yeah,
shit,
like
dude.
yeah. Wonder what
And
you
you
can
can
do about
solve
that,
that.
man. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and it's like I don't know. It's you can't make this up. You really can't like WWE doesn't do better rivalries than this. Like Joel has to hate Ben. I'm sure that he does. I'm
Mhm.
sure Tobias hates Ben too. The funny
Yeah,
thing is I'm sure Seth hates Ben
yeah.
too.
That's gonna be an
Like
awkward kind of. That's the thing that makes the NBA complicated, and this is something Tobias has talked about on record with media a ton of times, especially about the Simmons stuff. Is he's like, you have to be careful how you treat everyone because of the way the NBA works with trades. Is there's always additional pieces, there's always other parts, and you don't know who's coming with you. So now, for Seth, who has been right in the camp of being ostracized by Ben, being left out in the lone by Ben, is now being sent to go to battle with him again, and so Curry's been a guy that's been firmly in this whole process of Ben during the meltdown. He was a part of watching Ben in the Hawks series struggle. He was a part of the group reaching out to try and lure him back to the Sixers to rejoin the team that Ben was not having, and now to be sent to Brooklyn and be teammates again. Definitely a weird situation there. So very very strange all around, but it is interesting for Curry.
yeah, and I mean like it's hard to know because obviously Curry didn't sign with Philadelphia. He was traded there. But by all accounts, you got to assume that he really liked it in Philadelphia. He was playing with, Doc Rivers is his father-in-law. I'm sure it was nice, that type of thing. Like he didn't ask to be traded. Ben asked to be traded,
Yeah,
and he just happened to be a collateral damage. So like, I wonder. I mean, I think he's a pro. He knows
for
this
sure.
league, and he's been traded enough times to know that that type of stuff happens. And him and Kyrie did play in college together, so they've known each other for a long time.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Maybe he is happy there as well. I'm sure it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not like he got sent to Detroit
Yeah,
uh, or Sacramento. Like he gets to go play in Brooklyn with one of the best teams in the NBA, and he can't be too upset about that, but I'm sure there's lingering feelings. There has to be. Like it would be inhumane to not have
yeah,
those feelings. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's just an interesting situation. Maybe Paul Millsap too. Maybe Paul Millsap didn't want to get traded to the Sixers and he didn't want to go with James Harden, but I can't imagine that there's going to be. And Curry was like good friends with Ben. Like they were like
yeah.
boys last year. Like they hung out all the time.
Yeah, both guys that would play video games together like on a constant basis too. And like I mean that like for NBA players, that's one of like the most common hobbies now is like Curry and Simmons specifically were people who would like come home from games and hop on and play together and that kind of thing, which
Yeah.
on the road, especially, both went with their consoles and did that thing. So I don't know, maybe they'll be tight again. That's not an issue that we have to worry about whatsoever anymore. And I'm all in on the Ben Simmons, like, smear campaign, whatever you want to call it. I'm ready for it all to come out. I'm ready for all the behind the scenes leaks to start coming
Yeah.
out, because there's been plenty kept under wraps that are kind of out already, and I think plenty that nobody knows about that are just going to be let loose from the Sixers end. So I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be uh, a lot over the next couple weeks, and even if not over the next couple weeks, probably into the summer. I'm sure there
Yeah.
will be some things that come out, and um, so be it. That's the way things have panned out. Uh, Not much to say more about that, but I think we can wrap it up here. This is like the James Harden won't be. We'll probably do another podcast right before Harden comes back to play.
Yeah,
It
won't
seems
be
like he's
playing
gonna
this
be.
weekend. Won't be playing
No,
tonight or
so
tomorrow.
it
So
said I just got an update that said it's gonna be Tuesday. Most likely, it's gonna be Tuesday against Boston, which
okay.
gotta love that. He comes
Yeah.
back, plays the Sixers, a rival of the Sixers, um, on Tuesday. So we'll probably do another one before then. But until then, the Sixers play tonight against OKC, and then are they in Cleveland tomorrow, or are they at home against Cleveland tomorrow?
I believe at home.
Okay. So OKC and Cleveland, the next two nights. Obviously they'll be a little bit shorthanded in terms of numbers and bodies, but regardless, two good games, and then they get Harden back. So what's your prediction for the weekend, just to close this out, and then prediction for the Boston game if Harden plays?
I think we win tonight against OKC. I think we probably drop to Cleveland without Harden and without, it'll be kind of a mismatch of pieces for now until the full squad gets back. But we don't lose in Harden's first game back, for sure not. So if he plays
Not at
Tuesday,
home.
they're not dropping. They're not dropping that.
No, absolutely not. I don't think so either. But until then, check out BetUS like we talked about earlier. Use our code PickSwap. You can follow Sean at Sean_Bernard1. Follow me at JSBarain17. Follow the pod at PickSwap Pod. Check out the YouTube. Find us anywhere you get your podcasts. Stay tuned for all the parlays and everything on Twitter, and we'll talk to you guys.